We're joined by Mike Miles from the South African Bee Industry Organization. He's joining us via Skype this morning. Mike, a very good morning to you and thanks for your time. We've heard in that story just why bees are important, what's happening with the bee population around the world. How do we fare in South Africa in preserving our bee population here?
Well, thanks very much for asking me. What you said in your run-up is quite accurate in terms of a synopsis of the international situation. In South Africa, we're faced with a number of challenges, and I think the main three ones is firstly lack of forage for our bees. Secondly, vandalism is a big issue, and thirdly, pests and diseases. Forage, if we have diminishing amounts of forage in the country, we can't actually support our honeybee population. You see, we use honeybees in South Africa, like elsewhere in the world, for two main things: honey production, but more importantly, pollination. And in the pollination periods, when bees are used on the crops for pollination, when you take them off, you've got to put them into forage areas. And if those forage areas have been diminished in the last few years, which they have, our commercial beekeepers have a major problem. Let's talk about the disease issue. You mentioned colony collapse disorder. Now, luckily here in South Africa, we don't seem to have that particular malady. It seems to be one that is endemic to the Americas and to Europe. We have other challenges when it comes to pests and diseases. And in particular, we recently had an outbreak of American foul brood down in the Western Cape. And that it's still there, it's still with us. Our bees seem to be managing it, but we must always remain vigilant, and it's all down to good beekeeper management practices that will prevent its spread. And the other big problem we have is up in the African bee, the scutellata area, is the invasion of the Cape bee, which actually is a parasitic bee when it comes to the African bee. And that's another challenge we have. So luckily, when you talk about colony collapse disorder, yes, it is a threat internationally, excuse me, but luckily, we don't seem to have had any of those symptoms yet here in South Africa.
Now, Mike, when we see bees, I mean, automatically, the first thing we see them is as a danger to ourselves and not as performing all these good deeds that they do. How do we actually protect ourselves and protect the bees at the same time? I mean, we find people putting out, for example, when you go to a restaurant, your first concern is to get the bees away from the tables, and all kinds of methods are used. Are we looking at ways of doing both, protecting ourselves and protecting the bee population?
Well, I think bees are not naturally aggressive. They only become aggressive if they are disturbed or certain elements within their colony make them become aggressive and attack human beings. We've got the two scenarios. We've got let's call them the managed bees, which are in beehives where beekeepers put them in certain areas. And we've got the wild bee population, which tend to be they inhabit municipal boxes and so on. Restaurants do have a problem. You'll find that problem normally occurs at the beginning of winter when our food resources, and particularly in the suburban areas, where the food resources dry up. And so the bees naturally look for other sources of sweetener. And that's why they go to the restaurants and they like to get into Coca-Cola bottles and cool drinks and jams and so on. And there are ways in which restaurants can put out decoy sugar receptacles for those bees to stop them, annoying the patrons. The big thing is we need to preserve our bees. One of the big problems we have in the suburban areas is where people are maliciously destroying bees without having them properly removed. Now, yes, a swarm of bees in an area where, let's put it in a municipal box or something, they will become a nuisance after a while. But we need to make sure that rather than going and fumigating and destroying those colonies, we actually remove them and then we take them to managed beehives. And that is one area that,
So if somebody does notice a hive in their yard or, like you say, in those boxes, can they contact you? Will you be able to help them to successfully remove them and take them to safe place?
Obviously, SABIA is a national body, but around the country in the main suburban areas, we have associations of beekeepers. What we would do is ask people to, yes, they can certainly contact us and we'll put them in touch with registered beekeepers who can do bee removals. And remember, anyone who does a bee removal must be registered by law. And we'll put them in touch with those people who can come and remove them and then manage them, put them into a beehive, and use them for the purpose that they're meant for, which is pollination and honey production.
All right, that's all we have time for. Thanks very much. We'll leave it there. Mike Miles from the South African Bee Industry Organization on preserving our much-needed bee population.